Every American mother in the 1970s had a drawer in her kitchen. Not the junk drawer, the other one, where she kept the index cards, the handwritten ones. When the children came home from school and nobody wanted dinner, but everyone was hungry, she opened that drawer. If there was one appetizer at a 1970s party that was adored by adults and kids alike, it was pigs in a blanket. But that was just the beginning. These are 25 of the snacks every 1970s mom made when nobody wanted a full meal, and almost nobody makes them anymore. Subscribe before we begin. The countdown starts now. Ants on a log. The after-school snack that required a knife, a jar of peanut butter, a stalk of celery, and a small box of raisins, and that somehow made children feel they were eating something exciting when they were eating celery. Celery cost a few cents a stalk in 1972. Peanut butter was 30 cents a serving. Raisins cost pennies. Total, under 15 cents per serving. You cut the celery into 3-inch sections. You filled the hollow with peanut butter from a spoon. You lined raisins down the center in a row. The celery was cool and snapped when you bit it. The peanut butter was warm and rich. The raisins were sweet against both. Ants on a log appeared in school lunch programs and home kitchens across America through the 1950s and 1960s, and reached their peak in the 1970s when the Back to Nature movement made anything involving fresh vegetables feel appropriately wholesome. It was the snack that made children eat celery without negotiation. Under 15 cents, 2 minutes. Children asked for seconds without being told. Classic cheese ball. The party centerpiece that sat on every 1970s entertaining table. A ball of cream cheese and sharp cheddar rolled in chopped pecans, served cold with a spreading knife and a plate of crackers. Cream cheese cost 49 cents in 1975. Shredded sharp cheddar added 30 cents. Chopped pecans were a quarter. Total, under $1.10 for a cheese ball that served 12. You softened cream cheese and mixed it with shredded cheddar, Worcestershire sauce, garlic powder, and a little onion powder. You shaped it into a ball with your hands and rolled it in the pecans until completely coated. You refrigerated it overnight. The cheese ball went firm and cold. The pecans clung to every surface. You served it with Ritz crackers and let people tear into it themselves. Cheese balls were prepared a day ahead to enhance flavor, which made them the ideal party snack for a host who wanted to do the work the night before and walk away. They required nothing the day of the party except carrying them from the refrigerator to the table. Under $1.10, made the night before, gone before the party reached its peak. If these remind you of a kitchen you grew up in, this channel is yours. We remember these things here. Subscribe and stay close. Deviled eggs. The snack that appeared at every 1970s gathering without being requested, because everyone knew it would be there. Hard-boiled egg whites filled with a creamy yolk mixture and dusted with paprika. A dozen eggs cost 50 cents in 1973. Mayonnaise and mustard added pennies. Total, under 70 cents for 2 dozen deviled egg halves. You hard-boiled the eggs and peeled them cold. You halved them lengthwise and pushed the yolks through a sieve or mashed them smooth with a fork. You mixed the yolks with mayonnaise, mustard, and a splash of vinegar and filled the whites. The whites were cool and firm. The filling was creamy and slightly tangy. The paprika added color and a faint warmth. Deviled eggs required no reheating and no serving utensils, and could be made a day ahead. 3 qualities that made them the most reliable snack in the 1970s kitchen. They were ubiquitous at gatherings. That word is not an exaggeration. No gathering was complete without them. Under 70 cents, made ahead, gone before anyone counted how many they had eaten. Pigs in blankets. The bite-sized snack that was adored by adults and children alike. Cocktail sausages, or mini hot dogs, wrapped in crescent roll dough and baked until golden, served with mustard and ketchup alongside. A can of crescent rolls cost 49 cents in 1974. A package of cocktail sausages was 69 cents. Total under $1.20 for 30 bites. You unrolled the crescent dough and cut each triangle into 3 smaller pieces. You placed a sausage at the wide end and rolled it toward the point. You baked at 375 degrees for 12 minutes. The dough went puffy and golden. The sausage swelled inside it. The smell of baking bread and warm meat reached every room in the house. Pigs in a blanket were so popular that they were served in school cafeterias throughout the decade. A Betty Crocker cookbook from 1957 had already spread the recipe nationally by the time the 70s arrived, which meant no household needed to be introduced to them. They only needed to be reminded. Grape jelly meatballs. The cocktail meatball that sounded impossible until you ate one. Small meatballs simmered in equal parts grape jelly and Heinz chili sauce until each one was coated in a dark, glossy, sweet, savory sauce that made no logical sense and tasted entirely right. A jar of grape jelly cost 39 cents in 1973. A bottle of chili sauce was 49 cents. Meatballs added under $1. Total under $2 for a pot that fed 15. You combined the jelly and chili sauce in a saucepan and stirred over medium heat until the jelly dissolved into the sauce. You added the meatballs and simmered 30 minutes until the sauce reduced and clung. The sauce went dark and glossy. The meatballs absorbed it completely. The first bite produced a combination of sweet and savory that the rational mind was not prepared for. Grape jelly meatballs were the party snack that every first-time guest regarded with visible skepticism, right up until they ate one. The skepticism never survived the first bite. The second followed immediately. The slow cooker was full, and then it was not. Under $2, 30 minutes. The toothpick dish was busy all evening. Homemade Chex party mix. The snack that filled every bowl at every 1970s gathering. Made from scratch, low and slow in the oven, not from a bag. Nobody bought it pre-made. That option did not yet exist and would not have been trusted if it had. A box of Chex cereal cost 69 cents in 1974. Butter, Worcestershire sauce, and pretzels added 50 cents. Total under $1.20 for a bowl that fed 15. You melted butter with Worcestershire sauce, garlic powder, and seasoned salt, and poured it over Chex cereal, mixed nuts, and pretzel sticks in a large roasting pan. You baked it at 250 degrees for 1 hour, stirring every 15 minutes. Onion dip with potato chips. The dip that Lipton invented in 1952 when someone stirred a packet of onion soup mix into sour cream and discovered the combination was far better than either ingredient alone. And that appeared at every 1970s gathering, in a bowl beside a bag of Ruffles, for 30 years. A packet of Lipton onion soup mix cost 15 cents in 1973. A container of sour cream was 30 cents. Total under 50 cents for a bowl that fed 8. You emptied the soup packet into the sour cream. You stirred it. You refrigerated it for at least an hour while the dried onion rehydrated and the flavors deepened. The dip went thick and cool. The onion flavor was sharp and savory. The sour cream rounded it. Ruffles held it without breaking. The onion dip of the 1970s was not made from scratch with caramelized onions. It was made from a 15-cent packet and a container of sour cream, and it was better than most things made from scratch. That is why it appeared at every gathering for 3 decades, and why the Lipton recipe printed on the back of every soup mix package has never been changed. Under 50 cents, 1 minute of work, gone within the hour. Cheese fondue. The dish that turned the dinner table into a participatory event. Melted Swiss cheese and white wine kept warm over a flame, with cubes of bread on long forks for dipping. The whole thing requiring everyone at the table to be involved. Fondue sets sold by the millions in the early 1970s. Swiss cheese cost 69 cents in 1974. White wine and bread added 30 cents. Total under $1 for a pot that fed 6. You grated the cheese and melted it slowly with wine, a little cornstarch, and a scrape of garlic in the pot over low heat, stirring until smooth and glossy. You set the pot over the flame on the table and handed everyone a fork. The cheese went thick and stretchy when you pulled the bread away. The wine gave it sharpness. The bread soaked up everything that clung. Stuffed celery with cream cheese. The more elegant cousin of ants on a log. Celery stalks filled with seasoned cream cheese and cut into 2-inch pieces, arranged on a plate, and brought to the table as a party appetizer that looked considerably more effortful than it was. Celery cost a few cents a stalk in 1973. Cream cheese was 49 cents. Total under 70 cents for a full plate. You softened cream cheese and mixed it with garlic powder, dried chives, and a pinch of salt. You spread it generously into the hollow of each celery stalk and cut them into pieces. The celery was cool and crisp. The cream cheese went smooth and slightly savory. The chives added a faint onion note throughout. Stuffed celery was the snack that appeared on the table at every gathering where someone wanted to signal effort without making much of it. The cream cheese did the work. The celery was the vehicle. The arrangement on the plate was the signal. Nobody questioned it. Nobody needed to. Under 70 cents. No cooking. A plate that looked planned. Spinach dip in a bread bowl. The dip that arrived at every 1970s party inside a hollowed-out round loaf of sourdough bread. Frozen spinach, sour cream, mayonnaise, and a packet of Knorr vegetable soup mix, stirred together and refrigerated overnight. A package of frozen spinach cost 25 cents in 1975. Sour cream was 30 cents. The soup packet was 15 cents. Total under $1 for a dip that fed 12. You thawed the spinach and squeezed every drop of moisture out of it. You mixed it with sour cream, mayonnaise, and the soup packet. You refrigerated it overnight. You hollowed the bread in the morning and filled it. The dip went green and thick and slightly creamy. The spinach gave it texture. The vegetable seasoning gave it depth it could not produce alone. The bread bowl was the presentation that made this unforgettable. The serving vessel was edible. The torn bread pieces arranged around it were the dippers. Nothing needed to be thrown away. The last guest sopped up the last of the dip with the last piece of bread, and the table was clean. Under $1, made the night before, every bite of the bowl eaten. Swedish meatballs. The meatball that appeared at every 1970s church supper, potluck, and PTA meeting. Ground beef and pork rolled into small balls, browned in butter, and finished in a cream sauce seasoned with nutmeg and allspice. Ground beef and pork cost under $1 in 1973. Cream and broth added 30 cents. Total under $1.50 for a dish that fed 12 as a snack. You mixed the meats with breadcrumbs, egg, grated onion, allspice, and nutmeg, and rolled them into small uniform balls. You browned them in batches in butter until golden. You built a cream sauce in the same pan from the drippings, beef broth, and a spoon of sour cream. The meatballs went caramelized outside and tender inside. The sauce went pale and rich and slightly tangy. The nutmeg and allspice gave them a warmth that no Italian-style meatball produced. Swedish meatballs and grape jelly meatballs at the same party occupied different ends of the chafing dish and created a conversation that ran the entire evening. Nobody agreed on which was better. Both chafing dishes were empty by the end. Under $1.50, 40 minutes. The chafing dish needed refilling twice. Popcorn balls. The snack that required fast hands, a candy thermometer, and the willingness to shape hot, syrup-coated popcorn into spheres before it's set. Popular at Halloween and school events throughout the decade. Popcorn cost almost nothing. Corn syrup and sugar added 15 cents. Total under 20 cents for 6 popcorn balls. You cooked sugar and corn syrup to the soft ball stage. You poured it over fresh popped corn and stirred quickly to coat. You buttered your hands and shaped the mixture into tight balls before it hardened. The outside went sticky and sweet. The popcorn stayed slightly crisp underneath the coating. The whole thing set firm in 10 minutes and lasted without going stale. Popcorn balls required practice timing. The window between pourable and set was narrow. Women who had made them annually for 20 years moved through that window with confidence. Women making them for the first time moved through it more carefully and ate the imperfect ones themselves. Nobody went without. Under 20 cents, fast hands required. Gone by Halloween night. Homemade fudge. The sweet that appeared on every 1970s holiday table and Christmas plate. Chocolate fudge made on the stovetop from sugar, cocoa, butter, and milk, beaten by hand until it lost its gloss and set firm in a buttered pan. Sugar and cocoa cost 15 cents in 1972. Butter and milk added 10 cents. Total under 30 cents for a pan that made 36 squares. You cooked sugar, cocoa, butter, and milk to the soft ball stage. You removed it from heat, added vanilla, and beat it with a wooden spoon until it thickened and went matte. You poured it into a buttered pan immediately. The change from glossy to matte happened suddenly when you beat it. You had to move fast. Homemade fudge required judgment that took practice to develop. The women who made it well made it look effortless because they had made imperfect batches first and kept going. The imperfect batches were soft fudge or grainy fudge, and they were eaten without complaint, and the knowledge accumulated. Under 30 cents, 1 hour including cooling. The pan empty before New Year's. Cinnamon toast. The snack that stood between plain bread and dessert. White bread toasted, buttered immediately while still hot, and sprinkled with cinnamon sugar until the butter soaked through and the sugar melted into a thin glaze. 2 slices of bread cost a few cents in 1974. Butter, cinnamon, and sugar added 5 cents. Total under 15 cents per serving. You toasted the bread until golden. You buttered it the moment it came up, while it was still hot enough to melt the butter completely into the surface. Pizza rolls. The after-school snack that required exactly as much patience as a hungry child had, which was very little. Small pillows of dough filled with pizza sauce and cheese, baked until the outside crisped and the inside reached a temperature that technically required waiting. A package of frozen pizza rolls cost 69 cents in 1976. Total under 70 cents for 16 rolls. You arranged them on a baking sheet. You baked at 375 degrees for 12 minutes. You waited the additional 3 minutes you were supposed to wait before eating them. Most children did not wait the additional 3 minutes. The outside went golden and slightly crisp. The inside went molten with cheese and tomato sauce. The smell was of baked dough and pizza and something slightly industrial that was entirely its own thing. Pizza rolls announced what they were openly and without apology. The children who ate them did not require sophistication. They required something hot that tasted like pizza in 12 minutes after school, and pizza rolls delivered exactly that. Under 70 cents, 12 minutes. Burns on the roof of the mouth were standard. Tuna salad on crackers. the snack that turned a can of tuna into a plated afternoon meal. Tuna mixed with mayonnaise and sweet pickle relish, spooned onto Ritz crackers, and eaten before the crackers had time to soften. A can of tuna cost 29 cents in 1973. Mayonnaise and relish added pennies. Crackers were 30 cents. Total, under 70 cents for a plate that fed two. You drained the tuna and mashed it with mayonnaise, relish, salt, and pepper until evenly mixed. You spooned it onto crackers and ate them quickly. The tuna was firm and briny. The mayonnaise made it creamy. The relish added sweetness and texture. The cracker held exactly as long as it needed to. Tuna on crackers occupied the space between a real meal and nothing. Substantial enough to stop the hunger, light enough that dinner still made sense 2 hours later. It was the snack of practical mothers who needed something to appear on the table quickly and disappear just as efficiently. Under 70 cents. 5 minutes. No dishes except a bowl and a spoon. Chocolate no-bake cookies. The cookies made on the stovetop rather than in the oven. Sugar, cocoa, butter, and milk boiled briefly together, then oats stirred in, and the mixture dropped onto waxed paper to set without any baking required. Sugar and cocoa cost 15 cents in 1973. Oats and butter added 10 cents. Total, under 30 cents for 2 dozen cookies. You boiled butter, sugar, cocoa, and milk in a saucepan for exactly 90 seconds after reaching a full boil. You removed it from heat and stirred in oats and vanilla immediately. You dropped spoonfuls onto waxed paper and waited 20 minutes. The cookies went fudgy and slightly chewy. The oats gave them texture and body. The chocolate was direct and rich. No-bake cookies were made when the oven was occupied, when the weather was too warm to turn it on, or when 20 minutes was all the time available. They were also the cookies children learned to make first, because the stovetop stage was short, the result was immediate, and the waiting was only 20 minutes. Under 30 cents. 20 minutes of patience. The waxed paper covered the entire counter. Homemade Chex Party Mix. A box of corn Chex cost 49 cents in 1972. Add wheat Chex, rice Chex, a sleeve of pretzels, a handful of mixed nuts, and 6 tablespoons of butter. Total cost, under $2. Fed 12 guests. You melt the butter slow in a low oven. You stir in Worcestershire sauce until the kitchen smells like a steakhouse. Garlic powder, onion salt, seasoned salt. You pour it over the cereal in a roasting pan and stir it with a wooden spoon every 15 minutes. The edges go dark. The nuts turn glossy. The whole house smells like something is happening. Ralston Purina printed the recipe on the back of the Chex box in 1952. By 1965, it was the default snack at every Midwestern card party, bowling league banquet, and church social from Ohio to Nebraska. For a generation living on fixed incomes, this was a snack that stretched. One batch lasted a week in a tin on the counter. It did not go stale. It did not judge you for eating it cold at midnight. Stovetop popcorn. A pound of popcorn kernels cost 39 cents in 1975. It made roughly 30 bowls. Do the math. You heat 3 tablespoons of oil in a heavy pot with a lid. You drop 3 kernels in. When they pop, the oil is ready. You pour in a half cup of kernels, put the lid on, and shake the pot across the burner. The first pop comes in about 30 seconds. Then the sound becomes a storm. You pull it off the heat when the pops slow to 1 per second. Salt, butter, done. Popcorn was cultivated by indigenous peoples in the Americas for over 5,000 years. By the 1930s, it had become the Depression-era snack of choice because a nickel bag fed a whole family at the movies. For anyone watching this who has not made popcorn on a stove in 20 years, remember this. The microwave bag costs 90 cents. The stovetop serving costs 3. Same snack, better taste. Your grandmother knew. Caramel corn. Popcorn from entry 23. A stick of butter, a cup of brown sugar, a quarter cup of corn syrup, a half teaspoon of baking soda. In 1977, total cost 70 cents. You pop the corn. You melt the butter and sugar and syrup together and boil it for 5 minutes. You stir in the baking soda and watch the caramel foam up like a living thing. You pour it over the popcorn and stir fast. You spread it on a sheet pan and bake it at 250 degrees for an hour, stirring every 15 minutes. The smell that comes out of that oven is the smell of every county fair in the 1970s. Caramel corn began as a street food in the Midwest in the 1890s. By the 1970s, it was the homemade answer to Cracker Jack. One batch in a tin fed a household for 10 days. For a retiree on a fixed income in 1978, that was not a treat. That was engineering. Jell-O salad molds. A box of Jell-O cost 10 cents in 1972. Add canned fruit cocktail, a can of condensed milk, and whatever was in the cupboard. Feeds 8 for under $1. You dissolve the Jell-O in boiling water. You stir in the cold water and the condensed milk. You fold in the fruit, the nuts, sometimes shredded carrots, sometimes cottage cheese. You pour it into a bundt-shaped mold and chill it overnight. You dip the mold in warm water and flip it onto a plate. The dome wobbles when you set it down. Jell-O salads exploded in American homes between 1955 and 1980. They were the centerpiece of church potlucks in the Midwest and South. Modern food writers mock this dish. Your grandmother called it dessert. She knew something you have forgotten. Cold, sweet, and shared beats expensive and alone every time. Salmon mousse. A can of pink salmon cost 89 cents in 1974. Add cream cheese, lemon juice, dill, and a packet of unflavored gelatin. Feeds 12 for under $2. You drain the salmon and flake it with a fork. You beat the cream cheese until it is smooth. You bloom the gelatin in cold water and then warm it until it dissolves. You fold everything together with lemon juice and chopped dill. You pour it into a fish-shaped mold and chill it overnight. You flip it onto a bed of parsley with a slice of olive for an eye. Serve it with saltine crackers. Salmon mousse was a staple of American entertaining from 1965 to 1985, appearing in Julia Child's Mastering the Art of French Cooking, and adapted down to supermarket ingredients by home cooks nationwide. For a host in 1978 who wanted to impress the neighbors on a $30 monthly entertaining budget, this was the answer. Grape jelly meatballs. A pound of ground beef cost 89 cents in 1974. A jar of Welch's grape jelly cost 79 cents. A bottle of Heinz chili sauce cost 95 cents. Under $3 total. Feeds 16 at a party. You roll the ground beef into 1-inch balls and brown them in a skillet. You pour off the fat. You dump the jelly and chili sauce into a slow cooker. You add the meatballs. You stir. You cover it and let it cook on low for 3 hours. The sauce turns a dark, glossy red. The meat goes tender. The house smells sweet and tangy and strange in a way that makes people ask what you are making.